In a disappointing contrast to its stellar Pixel Junk series, Q-Game's latest downloadable PlayStation exclusive, The Tomorrow Children, is a bland, monotonous, inscrutable mess that locks you into a tedious, time-draining loop. The game consists primarily of resource gathering and city building, with some floaty platforming and clumsy combat in between, but none of these constituent parts feel satisfying on their own, and together, they never amount to a larger payoff. To make matters worse, the game's opening tutorial doesn't really explain what you're supposed to do in Tomorrow Children, let alone how or why. Instead, it covers only the absolute basics. Following a failed global experiment, all that remains of our world is the Void, a vast, empty space dotted with disconnected towns, a handful of marauding monsters, and resource-rich islands that randomly appear in the nothingness. Your character is one of an army of identical projections that serve as the worker drones of the Soviet-themed society. Each projection is controlled by another human player. For some reason, you'll only catch brief, ethereal glimpses of other players rather than simply playing alongside them at all times, but you'll feel their presence as your resource counts fluctuate and new buildings pop up in your shared town. Resource gathering constitutes the single largest portion of the moment-to-moment gameplay, but every single step in the process is excruciatingly tedious. First, you must travel from your town to the one available island at that moment, which means waiting for the bus. You cannot call the bus, as it runs on a preset schedule, and there is only one bus. If you wander up as it's pulling away, too bad. And once you board the bus, you cannot skip the ride. If you hate unskippable cutscenes, imagine an unskippable bus ride through a blank white abyss. Once you actually reach the island, you can start to break its odd, destructible environments down into resources. Unfortunately, with the basic pickaxe, you hit a button once, then wait as your projection hammers away and a meter slowly fills. It's painful. You can use real cash to purchase a black market pickaxe that is, according to the menu text, 15.5 times faster than the basic pickaxe, but be warned, all tools, even those for purchase tools, break over time. Once you uncover some raw materials, you have to drag each block back to the bus stop using a backpack that contains just 3 pockets for resources, which obviously results in endless, unavoidable backtracking that is utterly mindless and repetitive. Then you have to wait for the bus to return before manually hauling all the resources from the original bus stop to their individual piles further into town, yet another tiresome, empty process that could have been easily automated. The islands themselves can be visually intriguing and even fun to explore, but that's nowhere near enough to compensate for the mind-numbing, time-devouring resource collection loop. Of course, all that resource gathering is in service of the game's other major gameplay pillar, crafting. If the city-building portion of Tomorrow Children was brilliant and rewarding, maybe, just maybe, all that tedious mining and moving and piling would feel worthwhile. Unfortunately, it's not. At all. Basically, every town you could possibly find yourself in will already have most of its essential infrastructure, so at best, you'll need to add a power plant or maybe a new apartment complex or a turret. The crafting table simply doesn't offer many options that are actually worth building, which stymies any strategy that might have emerged from this portion of the game. Plus, you're always at the mercy of the islands, which may not provide the resources you need. Outside of crafting, towns also teem with civics-related stats and gameplay systems, but none of these ancillary systems seem to have any material impact on the experience. Elections, leveling perks, my town's technology rating, their menus explained the numerical implications of each one, but I never actually felt that impact while playing the game. I also never felt attached to my town in any way. Remember, in Tomorrow Children, you're building a town with online strangers with whom you cannot communicate. As a result, towns develop haphazard layouts that are difficult to navigate, much less take pride in. If nothing else, Tomorrow Children's style is certainly novel. From its creepy, doll-faced characters to its patriotic propaganda, the game certainly makes the most of its chosen motif. Unfortunately, that motif is much cooler on paper than in practice. After hearing the same Soviet march blare at me from a teleprompter for the 100th time, I was more than ready to leave that world forever. I simply did not want to spend time there. It also didn't help that the game suffers from persistent, noticeable technical problems, but frankly, poor collision detection is the least of Tomorrow Children's troubles. The individual components aren't enjoyable on their own, and they don't contribute to anything bigger. There is no payoff, there is no point, and I'm happy to be done playing it.